Welcome to the first in a new series of Thinking Tackle. We're here at Gigantica Lake in northeastern France, which is a 35-acre gravel pit with over 600 carp in it. Some of them go to over 70 pounds, hence the name Gigantica. We booked the lake for a week, myself and a few friends. We've spread ourselves all around, and during the show we're going to go through all the different tips and tactics that we use for snaring these really wily carp. As you can see, it's late October, it's the end of the season, they've had pressure all year and they're not going to give themselves up easily. But my old mate Clive, true to form, has caught one already. So let's go and have a look and see how big it is. Well, it's not the giant we were looking for, mate, is it?
Not quite, but
it's a fish.
First Gigantica carp.
Very, very nice indeed. A stunning, stunning creature. Now, part of the stocking plan at Gigantica is to actually remove these little fellas and put them in the stock pond to grow them onto a bigger weight and then introduce them back into the lake, so all the fish left in the lake grow even faster as well. So this one's how big?
£15 on the nail.
£15. So anything under £20 going in the stock pond. So we're going to transfer him up there now. Next time you see him, he'll probably be £25. Chosen to fish a swim called Coe's Point, basically because it covers a large area of the centre of the lake. So whether it's blowing westerly, which it is now, or easterly, I've still got some wind pushing through the swim. I fished this swim back in September for a different project that we were doing and caught extremely well out of it. Followed in Ian McMillan into the swim, who'd done brilliantly the week before, and I managed to snare a couple of the real big uns out of here as well. So it's got loads of scope in this swim. My middle rod is basically straight out in front of me at about 100 yards. The right hand rod is probably a rod length or so to the right at the same sort of distance, and the left hand rod a rod length or so to the left. Just fan them out at sort of 90 to 100 yards. I haven't used the marker float. The bottom here is perfectly flat. There's nothing to find out there whatsoever. And rather than thrashing it to a foam with a marker float and scaring all the fish away that are already there, I've just put 3 rods out and just throwing stick boilies out all over the top of it. So if you haven't seen one before, that is a throwing stick. A very, very lightweight tube that's curved at the end. It's got a handle so you don't let go of it. And I'm putting out 20mm cell boilies into the throwing stick. I'm doing 2 at a time at the moment, and there is a technique to it. It takes a little bit of getting used to. So I'm putting 2 in at a time. I'm using both hands, and I'm starting off with my weight on my back foot. So I'll be leaning back a little bit, whacking it out there, and it's very much like a cast. I'll be whacking it out there and the weight will be transferring through my body onto my front foot. So let's have a couple of goes. There we go. I've got the wind behind me today, so it's making the job easier. They've gone about 90. I need to aim a little bit lower. Oh, that one's split. Now, if the boilie's split, just wet the end of the stick like that. And what that does is it reduces the backspin on the baits and they don't split. The downside is you tend to put them up in the air. So you have to sort of force the stick lower so that they don't go right up in the sky and go no distance. And they're going out there lovely now. Now, I started the session off with 4 kilos of boilies at about 100 yards, and I've not had a bite yet. And the reason I'm putting more bait in now is there are bream in this lake, and they will still eat 20mm boilies. That's why I'm not spodding and using particle and pellets. You just bring the bream in. There's loads of big roach here as well, and you're going to bring them in too, which I don't want to do. I just want to have a better boilies out there. Hopefully those smaller fish will either ignore them or not eat too many, and then when the carp come along, I'll get a bite off the carp. So because nothing's happened last night and there's fish showing near the spot but not on it, I'm going to put out another kilo or so of boilies and try and attract them in with it. And the frequency and the time that you bait up makes a massive difference to catching a knot. Because if I had the fish showing in my swim now, one after the other, and I baited up on their heads, I'd probably scare them away. But because there are fish showing near me but not on me, you can put bait out and draw them back in again. And a big mistake that I see people make, they get up in the morning, they've not had a run, it's first light, the best time to get a bite, and they put more bait out and ruin their chances. So the best time to bait up is when you're not expecting a take and you want to draw the fish back in again. So let's get a bit more out there. Just like any other lake that I'm fishing, the rig that I'm using is absolutely critical for success. Gigantica is different from other places, so I've made things slightly differently to suit the fishing situation here. So to start off with, I've got a snowman set up on, so I've got a pop-up boilie on the top, a bottom bait there, and I've trimmed a little bit off of each one so they join together a little bit neater, so they look a little bit more like a standard bottom bait. It's going to fly up into the fish's mouth a little bit easier because of the buoyancy of that pop-up. And I've attached that to a size 4 hook with a curved shank. Very long point on this hook, they're very, very sharp. And I've just angled the hook link in even more there with a bit of shrink tube to help that hook flip over and catch hold aggressively. And I've had to make the hook barbless because there are barbless rules here on Gigantica, and having that shrink tube on just helps that barbless hook to stay in that little bit better. So any rig that you're setting up, if you put a extra bit of shrink tube on there, you will definitely get less hook pulls. There's a little bit of the coating stripped back there, so I've exposed the braid on the inside of this stiff coated material. And then onto it as well, you can see there I've put a couple of hook link weights on there, but round the one nearest to the hook I've put loads of tungsten putty to make it really, really heavy. And what that's there to do is to help it drop down in the fish's mouth, help that hook turn over and catch hold and grab even more aggressively. Obviously it also pins everything to the lake bed, which I think is very important. At the other end, I've crimped it rather than tied a knot in it. This stiff material is quite easy to crimp, and that crimped round a little product there called a link loop makes it very, very strong, much stronger than tying a knot, and it's very simple to do as well. And then that's attached to a link loop which pulls inside a lead clip there under just a little bit of tension. So it's a semi-fixed rig, but if there's any pull on the other end by a fish, it will pull out. And what that basically does, it means when the fish sucks the bait in and feels that there's something wrong, a lot of the time they shake their head. We've seen it on the underwater filming, and they try and get rid of the hook by shaking the lead backwards and forwards and pulling the hook out. With this rig, the more they shake their head, the more the lead just slides away from them, and it makes it harder and harder for them to get rid of it. And on a lake like this where there are not many snags, that's what I would prefer, a running rig system. I think it really does muck the fish up, especially if most people use semi-fixed rigs, which they do on most lakes. And that is set up with a safe zone leader. Everything there is gravel coloured because the bottom here at Gigantica is very, very light in colour. And I've even got a lead on there that's been specially made for Gigantica that's much lighter in colour. The coating on it is much lighter so that everything blends in really well. And then up that safe zone leader, there's a couple of rubber beads on there. That stops the lead coming off the end of the leader on the take. So it's a little bit of a backstop effect, so it's going to jolt the hook a little bit more, but really it's just to slow the lead down. If the line breaks, they'll push off the end of the leader, no problem, and the fish will get away from the lead system. So that's the first one. That's sort of my favourite, if you like, for fishing in open water. But there are swims here which are snaggy. There's a tree line swim where you're casting over right underneath the trees. There I want to dump the lead. So first of all, I've changed from a running system to a hybrid lead clip, which basically if you pull against that, the lead will always come off. There's a couple of other swims on the other bank there which are also snaggy. You want to be dumping the lead straight away there. So I've still got a safe zone leader on, but I've got a hybrid lead clip version which dumps the lead really quickly. So I'll swap from one to the other depending on the swim. The rig is almost exactly the same, a stiff coated material. I've got a longer shank hook on there. You can see again I've got a bit of shrink tube on that's angled in really aggressively to hold that hook in. I've made the hook barbless as well. Still got the rig ring on the hook, which I prefer, so the hair's coming off the hook near the point. And can you see the hook bait there has changed? I've got an Indian spice pop-up there as the top of my snowman, and then just a standard bottom bait that I've been feeding in the swim as well. So that seems to be getting most of the bites on this lake this season. So I've got one rod on that. I've got the other two on the pop-ups that I've made myself because they've been so successful. So those are the rigs that I recommend on this venue. I've caught loads of fish on them before, and I'm sure as the week progresses, I'm going to get a few more.